You pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is a WQI application for the Bloom residence. How do we do this one?
The reason we're discussing it is normally when we get a rebate application from WQI, it's delivered to us and it's standard. And so if anyone has a question, we can bring it up at a work session, but we haven't been scheduling them for discussion because there really isn't usually much to say. In this instance, it's a little bit different from the Bloom one because one, it was a split vote from WQI. Four said to approve the rebate and one said not to. And the reason for the disapproval, the no vote by one committee person was that this IA system is going in as a result of the, it's before the planning board. And so it's a lot line change, Barbara?
It's a minor subdivision.
Okay, so minor.
The health department wants that.
Barbara,
Sorry.
The health department just wants the septic upgraded. It's the town that requires the IA.
Right.
But it's just part of separating the front house and the back house, as we've been trying to do. And apparently by a few inches, that septic system at the Menantic Roadhouse is it a minimum 10 feet they want? It's a few inches shy of 10 feet. So they want it upgraded, they want it moved.
Right.
But they don't need it to be an IA system, it's the town.
So the county.
dissenting vote was because of the mandatory nature of
Yes,
the
yes, so
install.
our policy is we don't give rebates for Suffolk County Department of Health mandated upgrades and systems. So they're requesting that the system be upgraded. They don't require it to be IA.
just operational.
They just said it has to be upgraded.
And it's not for any expansion,
Right.
Correct.
which is what
And also-
triggers it.
Part of this subdivision is because those lots got merged by operation of law.
Yeah, way back when.
That's another thing, is that because of this by operation of law.
Sort of the town created this, in a way, you could
Yes,
say.
yes.
Maybe 20 years ago, am I right?
Probably
I think so.
more.
You think more? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was still happening when I became an assessor, which was in the early aughts, so. And then during my term as an assessor, we said we're not doing this anymore because the upheaval was pretty substantial for some
Yeah.
people, and I think you're a perfect example of this.
Because you continue to get two tax bills. We
Yeah,
had two separate tax map IDs.
yeah.
Craig, I think, put in motion to do that part, but that part's not even finished yet.
Yeah,
Merge them as one, only to unmerge them.
right.
Anyway, so that's where we are now. That's what they did.
Can I just color this with the law real quick, just do a
Thank you.
succinct briefing on it? Okay, so in our code, Shelter Island Town Code, Chapter 43, an IA system is required if new construction is over 1,500 square feet. So you build a new house over 1,500, you have to put in an IA system. If Department of Health requires an upgrade, which is this case, again, it could be an upgraded conventional system, but if that's the case, we're saying, no, that's not good enough, we want an IA system on the town side.
Wait, say that again?
Department of Health, the county, says you need to upgrade your septic system, and they can upgrade it conventionally.
Right.
Our town code says, no, you need to make it an IA system, not a mere upgraded conventional system. And the third way is if you're expanding or renovating a dwelling or an accessory apartment, if it has a non-conforming, if either one of those have a non-conforming system, or it increases the SFLA by 25%. In all these situations, and the third way is if you're increasing the number of bedrooms. So if you're putting addition, increasing the number of bedrooms, triggered IA system. If you're increasing the SFLA by 25%, triggered, you need an IA system. This is all town requirement. If you have a non-conforming system and you're expanding, adding bedrooms or an addition, triggered, you need to have an IA system. So that's the town code. But then you go to the Town of Shelter Island WQI funding policy and restrictions manual. And you go to D2, which is homeowner initiated and county or town building code mandated system upgrades. The last sentence of the first paragraph of D2 says WQI policy, not code, not bars providing rebates for an IA system when upgrading to an IA, when the upgrading of an IA system is mandated by the Suffolk County Department of Health, or section 43-10.4 is what I just read you. So anytime you're mandated, they're like, no, pay for it yourself because you're mandated. If you're voluntarily going to put it in, then we'll give you the rebate. That's sort of the policy. But that's WQI. The town board doesn't have to adhere to that policy. That does not bind you. And I think what you need to look at is, number one, the objective of that the objective of this rebate system. And then also, when you look at each on a case-by-case basis, that it does not permit or accommodate new growth. So in this particular situation, not permitting or accommodating new growth, mere lot line modification, Department of Health is saying you need to upgrade your conventional system.
But the upgrade is moving it, it's not
Right, you need to
upgrading it.
relocate your existing
Right.
system because it's non-compliant with the setback.
Correct. So I'll just read briefly from this policy and restrictions manual. The objective of the Shelter Island IA system rebate program is to provide financial assistance to homeowners to voluntarily replace a cesspool or conventional septic system for the installation of an advanced waste reduction system. Innovative IA systems reduce nitrate contamination in an aquifer by converting it into harmless nitrogen gas. They also enhance the biologic decomposition of pharmaceuticals, emerging contaminants of concern, and other organic compounds. So that's the objective behind the policy. So if you could square those two things, where it doesn't permit or accommodate new growth, and it's in line with the objectives, which is to clean the aquifer, I think you can deviate from the policy.
My feeling is, obviously, the objective is, to clean the aquifer as best we can, which this would do. So as long as we can legally do it, I say we.
Again, you can legally do it without even justifying it because it's just a mere policy and that you're not bound by.
Right.
But I think it's good practice to make sure it's not accommodating new growth because
Right.
that'll run
Obviously, it's
state
not.
legislation
Right.
and other provisions in our town code. But also if you can articulate that it meets the objective, then I think you're
Well, it
fine.
meets all the objectives. The only one is because the county wants it moved, but it's mandated that it has to be, upgraded, but
Yes.
really it's just relocated. It's not upgraded.
Correct. So,
I'm comfortable.
because
It's an old system, right, Barbara?
It had been upgraded probably from here 30 years, 25 years ago. maybe.
Okay, all right. So it's not a cesspit.
No.
No.
That's why I was kind of surprised at their thing, and I clarified with Matt, why are they making me do this again?
Right, it's kind of
He said
crazy.
because you're shy of that 10-foot
Yeah.
distance. And I said, well, can we get a variance for a couple of inches? And
Yeah.
he said, they do not budge. He said, I've had people have to do it for less than you are short. So it's just the way they are.
Right.
Okay? Input.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things about it. There are no new homes. It was something that we merged by operation of law that they're just trying to put back the way it was. So, I mean, we sort of created that issue. One of the things I think about is the location of the property, and this property is in the vicinity of the West Neck water wells. So any improvement to water quality in that area improves kind of the water quality for those service wells to the West Neck Water District. And so, I mean, I'm not really opposed to it in that sense. I mean, I think it kind of meets the philosophy of the WQI policy. Yeah, I mean, typically, the only time the county mandates an upgrade to an upgrade of a system is if you're doing construction and you're increasing your flow rate, then they would require that you have a system large enough to handle that increased capacity. There's no change to the structures. You're not doing any construction, any building, any expansion. You're just
Trying to
replacing,
get through the subdivision.
you're trying to replace your lot line essentially, so that
Right.
properties.
So the health department has to approve before I can go back to the planning board for the final approval.
Right.
I'm in total concurrence with what Meg just said. The first thing I thought about is the location of the property and the proximity to the West Neck water. And anything that we can do to improve that surrounding area with those wells along New York Avenue, and this is upgrade from that, I'm in favor of, so I'd be willing to support it.
This does benefit the community. That's my,
I mean, the IA system has to go in.
yeah.
So it's not a question of whether it's going to go in or not. It
Yeah.
has to be done because
Yeah.
that's our town code. So it's really just the funding mechanism that's a question here.
Yeah.
And the reason we changed our policy was to conserve money. Like if someone has to do an IA system, then they have to do it. So why are we
Granting.
granting? We do fund emergency replacements because the Suffolk County will allow in-kind, a traditional, a conventional system to go in. So we do encourage people with emergency replacements to go with an IA, and we grant funding for that. So even though they've got a failure,
Yeah.
and they have to because it's coming in the basement or pooling in the yard,
Right.
then we do allow that for funding. So, that's where I'm hung up, is that
Yeah.
we made the policy because these are mandated and therefore, why are we paying for them? So,
And the
Yes.
county and the state don't have these issues, right?
No.
You're still eligible for the county and the state
Probably
grants.
not the county because I'm at the very bottom of the bottom list. And both Meg and the woman at the county said you can bypass us and go to the state. And the state can act more quickly because the planning board is wanting this to conclude, without waiting on grants.
So just
It's not
to
between a
make,
rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
just to make it clear, the only reason you have to do this is to correct the merger.
To complete the subdivision, yeah.
I mean, that is,
And what is the purpose for the subdivision?
Because the lots are considered one,
No, I understand.
I have to separate them. I can't you're not allowed to have two houses on the one lot, according to Bob DiStefano and according to Craig.
Well, you could have a pre-existing non-conforming situation, but,
I want to separate them.
no, okay.
It just makes much more sense. It's way too confusing between,
Yeah.
two separate tax map numbers, now the one merged tax map number, two tax bills still.
Yeah, just for estate purposes.
Exactly, I just gotta finish the job
Right.
and get the proper deeds and.
Oh, anything from an engineering point of view?
And then also, if you look at the mandated IA systems, the majority are as if you're expanding and making larger, doing something that would, negatively, potentially impact the aquifer, or doing something like gratuitously. This isn't gratuitous. And also,
When you said case-by-case basis, that's what triggered into my mind, that every situation is a little bit different. This situation, I think there are a lot of things that would support, making an exception here.
and it was 4-1.
Right, I was just gonna say, the
So
other thing is, with our committees, I like to respect, this was, am I right? This was way discussed. I mean, not to sound like a valley girl, way discussed. But, it was a really detailed discussion. The objection was a serious one and well thought out. And that being said, they really feel that their job giving these grants out is to clean the water, to clean the aquifer, and that this serves that purpose without without negatively, without promoting growth.
Right.
And This is a policy and not, so therefore, we have the ability.
Right.
Yeah, so,
I mean, yes, I think their feeling was they have these funds, and the purpose of the funds is to
right.
help.
I mean, we're gonna go knocking on doors soon, you know, the WQI is, you know, gearing up, you know, to get people to get in line and get IA systems put in. Again, here's one coming to us.
30,000 plus.
Here's one coming to us to say, you know, we want to do this or have to do this, okay. Again, I think, for me, it's the priority of the cleaning up it supersedes the policy in this case.
We just make the argument again.
Okay,
She has to do it anyways.
yes.
Only because the town
happening.
says so, not because the county says so.
Yeah,
But it's happening.
true.
So it is happening. It's just a funding question.
It's
Okay,
But now my question is, do we have this set for a resolution for this evening?
No.
Because I know you've been waiting for a decision on this for a while, so is it something that we can get resolution for this evening?
and this happened
That's all right.
at 6 o'clock.
Yes, yes, we can.
Well, I hope you'll consider it in a
Thank you, Barbara.
proper fashion.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, Joe's gonna talk about some signage for our fresh pond project.
Did have a comment on the last item, if we could keep that agenda item open, but just for some perspective on the health department's view with regard to mandatory system changes versus, you know, quote unquote voluntary system changes, the approach is really that if you are worsening the environmental conditions by expanding the wastewater usage on the property, that is considered the justification for a mandatory system change to something that's more environmentally suitable as a way to mitigate your expansion, just like new construction. Mandatory use of IA systems for new construction because presumably that lot was empty, not contributing to the wastewater load before, therefore that particular instance not subject to reimbursement. Barbara's case falls precisely in the middle there. Yes, it is mandatory, but no, she is not imparting any additional negative impact to the property. So I believe, from my position, this supports the spirit of the legislation. You have an active, willing partner here who wants to do better for the environment. The continuing costs of the system are hers to bear. So if you have this willing partner within the community, I think that's the right approach. Notwithstanding the written code, certainly the spirit of the law supports, you know, these particular applications.
Thank you.
That aside,
Okay,
the Peconic Estuary Protection Committee, not PEPC, not to be confused with PEP, has offered the town and other municipalities funding for educational signage at wetlands, waterfront estuarian type educational outreach. I've stumbled on my own words now. I can't quite sum it all up in one phrase, but the PEPC has funding to extend to municipalities to develop signage for the public on water quality improvement projects. I had originally connected this committee with Peter Grand and the Fresh Pond Neighbors Association because the work at Fresh Pond to restore water quality fit their overall program objectives. The relationship with PEPC was to provide the graphic design and the photography to develop this signage. The responsibility to purchase the signage and install them was going to be on the individual municipalities. Peter Grand and the Fresh Pond Neighbors Association have done a tremendous amount of legwork to oversee this process. They have engaged with the committee to organize and develop this sign. They met with folks to look at, you know, what photography they could use. They ultimately have some great drone footage that was taken of Fresh Pond. And so now the program is concluding and we have to purchase the signs. And so I'm asking the town board in partnership with Fresh Pond Neighbors Association that we purchase the signs that they have worked to develop, and that we would potentially place 2 signs, educational signs, one at Fresh Pond Road, the public access point, and the other at Turkham's Rest, someplace along the location of the Fresh Pond interface. The sign has a beautiful image, drone footage of the pond. It talks about the remediation efforts that are currently being made to improve water quality, and it talks about specifically the role Fresh Pond plays in our overall watershed. The dimensions.
Can you share it?
Yes, I can share it. It's best if I send it to your email because it's a large
I got it.
picture. Oh, you got it?
Can you
Okay.
put it up, or should I share? I have it. Oh, wait, I'm not. It was sent to us on Friday, the 14th at 11:38 from Peter Grand. Let's see. Amber, are you on? Because you got it. And Meg, you got it too. Friday, the 14th, Peter Grand, 11:38 a.m. It would be nice to see it, because it is actually
Yes.
a very attractive sign.
It's very nice, very nicely done. A lot of effort went into developing it. It's, in my mind, non-controversial. And
Share screen, Christina.
it can be a nice way to, I think, complement those who are already using Turkham's Rest as a walking nature tour. It provides a lot of context for the surrounding area and the ecology. And it's a relatively trivial amount of money. We're looking for $2,500 to purchase the signage, and the Highway Department, Public Works Office would do the installation.
Isn't that nice? That is a really nice shot.
Yeah, really nice. I think it's a great combination of imagery and also sort of schematics about how the aquifer works, the impact locally.
Yeah.
The bottom is just, it has
Oh, okay.
Fresh Pond. at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bottom. I was leaving the
Yeah,
top
no,
part.
go ahead. I didn't know if
For the
there's more writing.
verbiage,
Yeah, yeah.
My concern down there, I haven't driven down there in a few months, is that there's a lot of signage down there. Like no bathing, and we've parking sign. I just feel like we're already sign heavy there. So just the visual clutter. Have you looked at that? Where would it be placed? How are we gonna
I think there's room for this, particularly on the left side, if you're facing the pond. That's generally the access point. I think there's a lot of sign clutter on the street as well.
I agree.
Parking, but that's stuff that we could reorganize once we.
That would be my
Once
recommendation.
we lay this out.
That would be my recommendation. I think it's a great point because there is a lot of signage on that street and you could go sign crazy. I love this sign. I love the educational value to it. I love the fact that people can read this and be brought up to speed of why we're doing what we're doing. But I think we can reorganize and consolidate a little bit some of the signage that we have on that. And it's not a big job. Costs us nothing. We can
No.
do that in a couple hours.
Yeah, most of the signage isn't, other than the parking, does not need to be specific to its location. We can move them around as we see fit. Perhaps that's a good walking tour for the town board liaison and Brian and someone from Fresh Pond and perhaps even a neighbor from the street. At Turkham's Rest, I think there's a lot of options.
Sure.
Where that go, but in my mind, it's that little sitting area that's down by the water.
Correct. I agree.
So this quote that you sent us, so Peconic Estuary Committee is paying for it, or they just designed it and we're paying?
They paid for the design work. The quote that we have now is actually from the printing production company, and that's what I'm seeking funding for here.
$3,085.
2501 is the total. Yeah, I think that was maybe an outdated quote. There was some confusion about quotes.
I've watched the signage at places like Neshomic when people are out hiking, and this is a similar experience when you're down there. People read them, and this is very, very well done. And you get to see in the context of Fresh Pond, way it impacts other water bodies as it moves out.
Yes,
So I think it's really, it's a good piece.
yes.
You talk about education, and that's a great opportunity. And these signs, by the way, I see the ones at Mike Gillespie, there must be 8 years ago that we put that signage up around Sanctuary Pond. Looks like it's brand new. I mean, these signs don't, really fade, and they're done nicely. They're a nice addition with some type of picture and photographs sitting above it. But I watch people as they go down there, because I'm taking pictures, and I watch people reading that stuff and with kids and educating kids about things like that. I think it's a very good idea.
Yes, and the aerial, the direction of the view is specific to show Monantic and Dickerson Creek. Those are the sort of downstream impacts of what's happening at Fred Pond. So it's very purposeful, the orientation of the image.
Okay, so we just have to find the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Is anybody against?
No, I'm not against it, just figure out how to.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
That's a good
Can I
plan.
ask a question about that, Jerry,
Sure.
before he leaves? Was there any consideration given to even just like a little QR code or something in the corner to a Spanish translation or other language translation?
Good point.
I can't answer that. Not in my discussions, but I wasn't part of all of the design discussions. That's a very good.
It's a great
Good
point.
Very good
suggestion,
point.
Julia.
Yeah. And I'm not sure we have the opportunity to edit that at this point, but certainly we could add that perhaps as a decal
Yes,
after the fact.
yes.
Excellent point, though. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next on the list, WMAC met last week, and part of the discussion came up was a dock moratorium, and this came up because of some concerns about some outside docks that, well, the one in particular is pretty controversial, but I think the thing that kind of sold me on even talking about it was the one homeowner that came and said, that showed, proof, photographic proof that it did damage to her shoreline, one of the same type of dock that was put in. So I'm not really sure that a moratorium is needed, but maybe we need to.
But the WMAC and BJ and I were both there and had a lengthy conversation, and they wanted to not use that term moratorium.
Right.
So the new tack, and I would read it, it's a 3-step process. The WMAC was, I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want to back up just a little bit to not everybody watches the WMAC meetings.
Yes,
And I just want to say that this came from member Bill Garrity.
right,
And he's sort of been fighting the fight, if you will,
yes.
on docks that he considers to be inappropriate for placement. Never mind that they want to go longer, never mind, all the variances, not really that, just placement. And placement with safety is his number one concern. Some docks are just not going to, they're going to be they're being asked to be put in waters that are not safe for docks a preponderance of time. Most of the time, they're not really usable in a safe manner. The second reason that he has,
And it substantiates that, by the way, because she has documentation that the dock is almost never used.
never used
Never used,
along the stretch of.
but is causing
Right.
tremendous problems.
Right, so it was this application
Right.
that prompted Bill to write to his fellow WMAC members and to request that this be discussed at that last meeting. And just to highlight a few of the things that he said, if I could, the rapid growth and spread of development is increasing demands on the island's natural resources. And that alone is sort of one reason in his mind to relook at the code. The code does not take into consideration the extremely diverse nature of the island's shoreline. And that's, I think, a sort of examination number one for the WMAC in terms of looking at the code and proposing to us some changes. And then he finally says, now is the time to place into a moratorium. This is, again, before the meeting. This was his proposal, because there exists a potential for greater than 400 additional docks to be built. That's a lot, especially when you consider that it's the WMAC's opinion, based on applications, that all the right docks have been built. And that's an exaggerated statement. I get it. There probably are a few left that would be fine and no variance needed. But that being said, the majority of the dock applications this year were for placements that they questioned on safety and exposure grounds. And you have his follow-up email to the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so, so it was a really good discussion, and kind of, they came down on the idea that a moratorium was not necessary for them to do this analysis of the shoreline and then make recommendation to the town board, although it will take time. And in the meantime, stuff is still coming in. So the compromise, if you will, or the solution, better yet, is that they just will hear all applications, of course, but that they are really not going to grant, they don't have the granting authority, but not advise the town board to approve docks that require a variance.
That sums it up, and it's a good background. I'm glad you kicked that in there. But
You said 3 steps. You were going to say 3 steps?
yeah, well, I mean, we're not going to do this in a month. It's going to take us several months to be able to have a subcommittee to be able to, they're doing that as we speak. All of the second step is to take suggestions from the committee and really spend some time on this in between meetings, not necessarily at meetings, to send it to Bill so Bill can build arguments for and against, get all that data and those points together. And then step number 3 would be, of course, take a look at the current code, see how we could update that code to be more supportive of protecting shorelines in general, which I think is something that we need to do.
A little bit of a discussion was had about whether or not, yes, the WMEC is capable, but should we also consider perhaps hiring a consultant? Maybe after they've done an initial sort of, analysis of the shoreline and where building of a dock, like in the case of one proposed dock, where there's seems to be a fair amount of evidence that dock would impact the neighbors negatively, their shoreline, their retaining walls or bulkheads. And so maybe to take to put this in the back of our minds, maybe for budget time, to take the WMAC's work and have it reviewed by a marine engineer.
Because you're almost can anticipate you're going to be challenged on it. So,
Really?
I mean, I think it's the climate we live in. But I think that, so I would be in favor of that. I think Joe can have some sort of a play, as a town engineer, that, he obviously,
Marine experience?
his background is marine experience. And so I think we can tap in right to Joe initially, working with the group as well. But if Joe,
There's questions.
yeah, if there are questions, and we really, I don't think it would be an extensive thing, but we want to get it right, because this is a big decision. I think the one thing that pumped, and I wasn't aware of the number, BJ said the number of potential remaining dock situations. We're not talking about maybe a dozen or 2 more, we're talking about hundreds more that could be in places, and the places most likely that they're going to be applying for are places that the committee feels are unsafe and will have a negative impact on neighbors and shorelines, as evidenced by that neighbor that lives down at Silver Beach that was able to support that with visual evidence that here's the before, here's the after. And we're not talking 5-10 years, we're talking about a year after the construction of that dock, and the adverse effect to her property was more than noticeable. And she just replaced her bulkhead, and now that bulkhead is being undermined. So, again, this pits neighbor against neighbor kind of thing, and it's more than just aesthetics. Well, it's a pristine beach, and I don't want the look of that. No, this is more than that. Not that doesn't have some value to it, but there are other things here to consider. And we now have, and by the way, I'll end on this. The addition of these 2 new members to the WMAC I had a discussion already with Bill this morning on this. So, woke me up, I was about 3 hours of sleep since I got to bed at 4 a.m. But called me up bright and early this morning on a couple of things, that be one of them, but supported the fact that, that the 2 new members to the WMAC see things differently. And it brings a fresh new look to the WMAC Tommy feels is surely a different look, a different perspective. But the guy does his homework, the guy is very vocal there. Matt goes above and beyond. He's made a tremendous impression on the committee, since he's been on it. So I like the look of where the committee is going. And I think that John, as the chairperson, has been very supportive of these two new members of this committee. I think initially we were so worried about, the 7, the 125 years and everything else. But it does, for people that are out there, that's why committees need to be turned over periodically and new people added. They bring new ideas. I see it on Deer and Tech with Julia on there with education and hunting and all that other kind of stuff. It does help. You need some fresh blood once in a while. That's why Jim Colligan's leaving the board. You need a new person in here, fresh blood, new ideas, and that's great. That's a good thing.
Okay,
Yep.
Good.
okay. That's it for the agenda items. We'll go around the table. I'll start. I have two things. One is, we'd like to set up some kind of public gathering to discuss the Charlie Murray property, which is now owned by the Binder family. Some kind of open house over there to discuss possibly the town purchasing it and what we would use it for. It's very rare that properties become available that the town could actually use. And in the center of town. And I mean, it's ideal. It's adjacent to Fisk Field. The school has been asking for years. We've considered moving the Fit Center, and this would be ideal for that. It's there's a house there that has many potential uses. There's a lot of land there that has potential uses. So rather than just come up with our own ideas, I think we're going to try to set something up before the summer's over to invite the public over and just brainstorm, if it's worth, investing in and what we could possibly do with it. Come up with a date and we'll put that out. Second thing I have is we got the we got the check actually from the county this month for the Community Preservation Fund. Now they blanket the whole check, Community Preservation Fund, WQI, and housing. And the housing portion for the month of May was a little over $47,000, which was nice for the first.
Yeah.
It's only 3 houses, that's it for me. Megan, comes in handy.
Just the address for the property that Jerry was talking about is 10 Midway Road. So it's right in the middle of the island. It does back up to Fisk's Field, so it's
And it has the
worth looking
top
at.
lot on the
And
other.
it has the top lot, backs right up to the top lot, so it kind of connects School Street with North Midway. Just because I know people have been asking about the address, that's the address. So comp plan, we canceled the 2 July meetings because our discussion of the zoning chapter went faster than we thought, so we didn't need those 2 additional meetings. So we're using the time to give the CPAC a bit of a break and to regroup and kind of come up with the plan moving forward now that the consultants have all the information. We've discussed it all. They have all the chapters. They're working on getting a draft of the document completed by the end of July. So in the meantime, BJ and I are reaching out to all of the different homeowners associations and the different community organizations to meet with them and learn what their concerns are for their specific area, what their needs are, what kind of things they would like to see in the comp plan. So we're still reaching out to the community
You're doing
to
that
get more
before the
information.
draft?
Yeah, we're doing that July and into August as well, just so we can get more information, and we're just feeding that to the consultants every time we talk to people. Because we're not by any means done getting public input, so we're just continuing to collect that information. So,
People can ask us what's already in there. We're familiar, so.
yeah.
And if it's not, a good discussion of this homeowners association's needs, from their point of view. And like I said, get that transmitted to the consultants.
Right. So we're working on that now. And then in August, we're going to continue that outreach. We're going to try to schedule like a virtual public meeting with the public to kind of discuss the draft of the plan. We're going to try to launch that in August. And then we're gonna have like a virtual public meeting towards the end of August where we do what we did in the first round, where we actually had breakout groups. So everyone would be on Zoom, last time I think we got almost 100 people in our Zoom, and then we broke it out into like 10 different groups, small group discussions. So we're gonna do something like that in August. And then in September, we're gonna have an open house. So we'll have like boards with all the action items from all the different chapters, and people can walk through, give their comment, give their input, and have face-to-face conversations with people. So it'll be kind of a more open, like a longer period of time where people can just come through as they have time to look at all the information and give our feedback. Then we're going to do another virtual public meeting in September. And then we'll have another in-person workshop in September as well. And then hopefully we will have the draft once again revised to include all that input. And then October is going to be another in-person open house with public review of the document and hopefully final revisions after that. In November, we're planning on a public hearing for the SECRA, and then revisions and a final draft being ready at the end of November for hopeful adoption in December by the board. So that's kind of our rough timeline. We're not having the 2 July meetings, but we are doing more personal outreach to all the different homeowners associations, community organizations, things like that. So it's not that we're not working, we're just doing more specific tasks while the consultants work to really get the draft done by the end of July. So that's kind of a rough timeline of what we have planned. When we have dates, we're gonna update the website and we'll release them, and we'll let everybody know at the Tuesday work sessions what those dates are gonna be. This is kind of just our rough plan moving forward. The water testing cards, so anybody in the triangle, if you received a card and you do want to have your water tested, if you think you're in the triangle but you didn't get a card, you can call us and let us know and we can fill one out for you.
You're asking for Coco when you.
We're asking for Coco when you call, yeah. Or Catherine, actually, you're asking for
Oh.
Catherine.
That's right.
But we're gonna try to close that acceptance by the end of the week. So by Friday, if you're interested, let us know because we want to start scheduling water testing. So let us know by the end of Friday, and that way we can have you on the list. And then the next phase is going to be coordinating a schedule of testing with the water company and the homeowners, because the homeowners have to be home in order for the water company to do the testing. So that'll be the next step in the process.
Responses, yeah.
We've got over 130. So more than 130, less than 140. I don't know the exact number because I know there was like 1 or 2 more cards, but so it's been a very good,
20%.
yeah, it's been a good response rate because we sent out, 434 cards, I believe.
And we haven't, it's just, we sort of, again, privacy concerns and all of that, but it would, the interesting thing to know, yet to know, is how well distributed they are throughout the triangle.
Yeah.
That's going to give us the most information.
Yeah. So, yeah, you have until the end of the week to get a response. If you didn't receive a card, like I said, but you think you're in that center area, give us a call, let us know. We can sign you up. And that's what I got.
So with that, then we'll have a number to use.
Then we'll have a number to go to WQI to ask for the funding. Because we were hesitant to ask for funding until we knew what the response rate would be. If we got 20 people, then it wouldn't even be worth moving forward. But with a response like 130, it would be worth moving forward, so we can figure out the numbers and make that presentation. The first week of August is when WQI has their meeting, so August 8th, I believe. So we'll get it done then. That's it, I'm done.
Jim? Yeah, just, first thing I noticed at 3:30 this morning, getting off the South Ferry, was that the roads were lined. And it looks great. I mean, that's what a safety factor that is. Being able to actually see the right side from the left lane, clearly visible. I don't think they're quite finished yet because I saw a couple of roads that still need to be done. But it's a great safety feature. So thank you, Brian, for following through on that. Cozy Lane, the house is down, so at 3:30 this morning, I actually visited Cozy Lane. I don't know why I did that, but I just was interested, put the brights on, and there was no house there. It was all filled in, and this morning they were back on the property looking for a couple of tanks and things like that, but house is gone. The neighbors were very appreciative. Before I left to go to New Mexico on Thursday, I went over Wednesday and I knocked on doors on the surrounding neighborhood, the people, the neighbors, just to inform them what was going to be happening on Monday, Tuesday of this week. And they were appreciative, and they are very appreciative. Spoke to somebody this morning that lives right there adjacent to the property, and they were really appreciative. It's really is, it's nice not to have a zombie house, you know, loaded with all kinds of mold and critters next door to you. Grief counseling, I want to remind everybody that we do run 2 sessions. We have another session coming up in August. We run one in July for people that might benefit from grief counseling. I would ask you to call Lori down at the Senior Center. She's in touch then with Bonnie and Nancy Green, to be able to schedule you for that. And I think we still have room in the August session if anybody wants to join that. Last thing I'll tell you is for the last, I know it's not real town business, but I do share it with you because Joe Thyner was an important part of this community. I had the privilege of going there last summer. I had the privilege of going there for the last 5 days. I left on Thursday, came home in the wee hours of this morning. We had 16 individuals there this summer. We had Vietnam veterans, which there were 3 of us, one in a wheelchair that wasn't doing too well. The heat was intense, so we had to make allowances for that. But another Vietnam veteran who was my age, actually in country at the same time, stationed in July, and he was there 3 weeks when he happened to step on he was an infantry soldier, stepped on a landmine and did some major damage to both legs, left arm, penetrating abdominal wound, sucking chest wound, air evac'd out, went through 30 surgeries in the next year and a half. Here's the reason I bring this up, and it's true about these retreats. He is caught in major guilt, shame that he didn't finish his tour. This is 52 years ago. This man was wounded in battle and is sitting there saying, looking at me saying, Jim, I wanted to be you. Well, I wanted to be me too, because I didn't want to come home the way he came home. And thank God he's still alive. So I looked at him and I said, Paul, 52 years you've been beating up on yourself. It's time to let go. I mean, you are as much of a hero as anybody else that's been buried, you know, through a lot of great surgery and evacuation out of there. You were able to be here today. The thing that happens in 4 days there is miraculous. Cliff Clark he came this year, added a tremendous amount of spiritual. We went to wasn't a church service on Sunday, it was cowboy service. We were the only ones not dressed in cowboy hats and boots and long pants. I went in shorts and a t-shirt and looked like a tourist. It was an hour-and-a-half ceremony, a lot of preaching, a lot of singing, but we all walked out of there. 5 of us went, and including Frank, including Dave Clark and Cliff. You know, we were 4 of the 5. And it was moving. It was really, really moving. Cliff is kind of guy that brings us back to the other, you know, people at the retreat and spreads the word. And it went over extremely, extremely well. The other large group of people that were there were the Iraqi, Afghan, Joey's comrades that were present on the battlefield the day that he died. And they still carry, these are people now in their 40s. They were sergeants, most of them. One was an officer that carry this tremendous guilt about what happened to Joey and the fact that they're still alive because of a number of things. But I saw tremendous, tremendous growth in 4 or 5 days. The only thing I worry about is the follow-up care, that when they come home, they're on this high for a while, and then they come to a crashing halt. So whatever you can do when it comes time to make it a donation to a worthy cause, we were able to secure a grant from Jennifer on her own time, because her husband is an ex-Marine, to get us a $10,000 grant, next year a $25,000 grant. but we're running 8 workshops, seminars during the course of this summer, retreats, actually, they are. And it's costly, but they're well worth it. I'll close by saying it's a shame that the United States doesn't recognize the tens of thousands of soldiers that go, and I'm not in this group, I hope, that are still suffering from war from decades ago and can't heal. It's a shame that some of our tax money doesn't recognize the fact that post-traumatic stress disorder is real and should be dealt with. I would love to bring some congressmen and senators down to that ranch and see firsthand what happens with the things that we do down there. It's amazing. And I climbed a mountain on 4 o'clock in the morning with the light on my forehead with a bunch of guys much younger than I. We went to the top of the hill and we watched the sun come up over the mountain at 6:12. Took about an hour to climb it, and then watch the sun come up, watch the valley just light up. It was a spiritual awakening. It was unbelievable. It's well worth it. I feel refreshed every time I come back, even though I'm a little tired. But my wife says to me, "You're not getting too involved in this, are you?" Well, not, but I really am committed to this. I feel fortunate, and I want to help some of those people that are to live the rest of their life and enjoy family and good times, because they do need to heal. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Jim. Amber?
First up, we are sponsoring a blood drive. So on Thursday, this coming Thursday, July 20th, from 1 to 7 at the EMS building. Appointments are recommended, but you don't have to have an appointment. You can just show up. Each donor will receive a coupon for a free slice of pizza from Slice. So you get a slice for doing that. So EMS Thursday, 1 to 7. Community Housing Board met last Thursday. If you go to the town website, you can see the ADU, the CDCLI sponsored the $2 million grant program. The applications are up and running and available. So we're going to, CDCLI is going to be, we're going to accept the applications through the end of July and start to do a preliminary awarding. CDCLI will go through and review all of the applications. You have to meet income requirements of the homeowners who want to build or rehab an ADU unit. And then you also have to meet zoning requirements. You can't have any variances that are needed or anything like that. So, but it's prominent on the front page of the town website. And so that's underway. And in other community housing, working on the permitting for 12 Southbury Road site to try and get something, preliminary approvals for what we can do there at that site. At the same time that it's going through Suffolk County Department of Health. We're working on requests for proposals from various builders. Once we know, we can pop in like it's going to be 6 units, mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. It's going to be rental units, what different builders might come forward with, and then have a community session once we have RFPs to bring in community input and then revise or accept, just to keep things moving on that. That's it for Community Housing Board. WQI, we had a working group yesterday morning go through the flow chart and process and the application. So that's going to be coming to the town board probably next week. Coco's just got to finish making the edits from yesterday's session so that we can take a look at it and then adopt the new policies and procedures. So just keep an eye out for that. We'll do WAC. And CAC met yesterday, and since you weren't there, I pretended to be liaison for the day.
Wow, thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
And they reviewed one wetlands permit. They'll give that information to the planning board. Dan Clark has been working on an invasive plant list and recommended plant list. So they're going to work with a graphic designer to come up with something so that it's easy, it's nicely put together to give out to applicants and homeowners to take a look at. And it's going to have pictures of the various plants, especially the invasives, so that people know what to watch out for in their yards. And
We'll tell you, even in New Mexico, they have this new thing, because they got so much rain this year, that grew up, and it causes disorders for horses and for livestock, and they have to put the livestock down. It causes kind of a mental breakdown. And here's this horse that we rode last year, seen the thing acting crazy, and the pen, and they're trying to work on medications to bring it around, but it's an invasive. That's been around a long period of time, but because the saturation of rain, it flourished this year, and it's had a real negative impact on sheep, cattle, horses, and other livestock. It's, that's what invasive do. Some of them can be very harmful. Thank you for attending, by the way.
Yep. Last thing is website. Committee met this morning, and we are waiting for the contract, but we found money for starting the process for updating the website. It will have the notification, the agenda center and the notification that we want for people. It's going to be a big project. We're hoping, Christina and Kevin are going to be the key point people, but, Coco's going to be involved. A couple of others of us will, sit in and, see how the implementation is going along. But we do anticipate that it's going to be a 6-month process to take all of our information, get it reworked into a useful format, bring in the pieces that we're currently missing in our website, make it easier to use in the background for our employees to be more efficient. With the anticipation that by January 1st, we will have the website up and running.
An opportunity for every department to check their forms. Really, put good stuff up
Yes.
there.
Oh, yeah, no, we have departments that need to update, so they're going to be forced to.
Yeah.
So that's all that I had.
Good, okay. DJ?
WAC yesterday, what an exciting time. But they talked about, we always open the meeting with a current status report. And in spite of the deluge, the WAC thinks we should keep the status as guarded, because the year-to-date rainfall is within it's 21.4 inches, and that's in the lower end. And in other years has indicated sort of a drought status. So we are in a moderate drought. It was also mentioned yesterday that actually for a full year, we have been in some sort of drought condition. So a couple of good deluges, great, but it's not changing the picture all that much, moving the needle that much. That being said, we had readings, real-time readings on 2 of the wells on July 17th, which is yesterday after the heavy rains. And we could see that in these 2 wells, let's see, it was the one near Gardner's Bay, Hay Beach, and the one West Neck Brander. You could see the impact of the rain, bringing the well level up, a half an inch or whatever. So, because there's some thought that, rainfall is great, but a lot of it doesn't,
Right.
get through. So it was just interesting. And that, again, this USGS program where we're going to have real-time well readings on all our wells, they're just having glitches. They're having trouble getting this up and running. So hopefully by the end of the year, this will be something that we can depend on. It'll make it much easier for us to really respond to conditions.
Be interested, BJ, with that deluge of, I heard 2 and plus
Yeah, my
inches,
pool almost overflowed.
how long does it take for all of that to impact you said a slight increase there.
Yeah.
But if you get a reading 3 or 4 days after the rain,
Yeah.
I would wonder whether it's all.
It's almost, it was almost 24 hours. It was stunning. It's stunning.
If you get it like 3 or 4 days from now, or even 3 days from now,
Yeah.
I'd love to see what that impact would be.
Yeah.
That's a good heavy rain.
Email Peter Brand,
All right, okay.
sweetest guy.
Yep.
Rick Toner. And so yesterday, the big discussion, why it was an exciting meeting, is Gardner's Bay came with their hydrologist to make the case that they need to double their water take from the commonly used aquifer, which is no other way to say that. I mean, and so a presentation that left us, left the audience, anyway, a lot of questions need to be answered still, based on that presentation. So it's not over. In other words, that we need answers to things that we questioned yesterday, me and other people. I don't want to kind of relitigate the arguments yesterday. There was, however, a counter presentation at the end from a Hay Beach resident that was quite good, if you ask me. And so you should try to watch that meeting. I think the pools were very instructive. I forgot his name, but he made a graph, of what the equivalent of 75,000 gallon pools is the equivalent draw to what Gardner's Bay does in a July and August. So you would have to fill, whatever, 102 pools, to get the equivalent of, and just the graph was a stunning visual, if you ask me, just on a aesthetic basis, never mind what it said.
I think as the membership has changed in percentage from, it used to be in the old days,
Yeah.
primarily a Shelter Island club with outside people, it was an 80-20 split.
It was broad.
Now the split is much different.
Yeah.
And they're relying on bigger members, South Fork coming over to play golf. Of course, it's a bargain compared to
Yeah.
South.
Even though I think initiation, I think it was mentioned yesterday, was 125,000.
They want to see those fairways green, 24/7. That's the way we do it on South,
Correct.
paying big money, paid my 100,000 to join the club. And, so there's a lot of pressure there from South Fork people, I think.
A lot of comments made, but one of them that was, again, interesting, how can the town, let's just say we go from guarded to restricted, the drought status gets worse. Then the town is sort of mandating no irrigation, no sprinklers, no nothing, of people. We're mandating it. Yet Gardner's Bay would continue to pump from a well during those conditions. So a lot to think about, but also I have to say, we do need a lot more data. And so we might also, just at the town board level here, consider, consulting a hydrologist to help us wade through, once the data comes in, the things that we've asked for, to help us wade through all that.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
did the word term gray water ever come up with, in reference to anything down there?
No, but one thing that did come up is the idea of, swales, berms, reducing the impact, the runoff. Also brought up is, why isn't that being done already? So, a lot of back and forth and good, I thought, quality discussion. And we also talked about the possible extension of the West Neck water supply to come into the center here to service the municipal buildings. Lisa Shaw had a very good procedural kind of question, which is, we're calling it an extension of West Neck Water, but West Neck Water is still owned by the town and operated by SWA. This new one would actually, the mains of this extension would be owned by SWA. So she said that, this is I guess this is in your ballpark, how to figure out how that would be set up and in a way that, the town doesn't lose rights, lose whatever, it just has, it was a good point and something that needs to now be considered, I think. There's a library event from WAC. They do these throughout the summer, once a month in the summer months. And the next one is on the 27th, and they're going to be talking about water. What are you drinking? So, which is kind of similar. They've done this before, but it is interesting, and people, they get great turnouts at these. And Meg and I are scheduled to do our comp plan, a comp plan meeting in this library series on August 31st. They usually start at 5, Meg? 5:30?
The WAC one is scheduled to be 5, is what I wrote.
5, okay, so it's 5. But this is under the auspices of WAC, so it's the comp plan and water. So, if you on August 31st, if you come to this meeting, Meg and I will summarize for you where and how the comp plan is addressing
That's a Thursday?
the 31st, yeah, I think so. I think they both,
First is a Monday.
oh, is it? Okay.
August 31st is.
31st.
Oh, August 31st,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's a Thursday. This Vigil for Hope at Fisk Field is that night
Oh.
on the drug.
What time does that start?
It usually starts at 7 PM.
Okay, so we're done.
Yeah.
Okay,
And actually, that might be good. People could maybe wander from one to the other,
okay.
you know? So I think that's all I have
Okay, Stephen?
today.
Just one thing that popped into my head regarding the docks and the proposed moratorium or whatever. I know we're updating our comp plan and I know docks are not in the zoning code, but do we want to, does that come up at all?
It does come up. In fact, I will follow up with the consultants. I had sent them sort of a summary that really was developed by the WMAC over since Dotson and Finkler, since our last consultant and comp plan try a couple of years ago. And then further discussions and emails that I had with separate WMAC members, I put that all together in an outline and put it off to them. And yes, docs are discussed. And I just want to see how they've incorporated it, because I gave them an outline. As I said, they needed to fill that out and then put that in and even decide which chapter they wanted to see it in, the consultants, I mean. So I'll follow up and let you know.
Yeah, because it might be a good resource in this particular situation.
Yeah.
Since we have them already on retainer to assist in maybe this review.
Right.
Because again, you can dovetail it into their work. on the
Yeah.
comp plan.
Yeah, I don't know how quickly the WMAC can act on this. You know what I mean? So we'll have to,
It can be recommendations that they,
yeah. Yeah, recommendation to recommend.
recommendations for actions.
All right.
I could have a meeting to set up a meeting to
Right.
discuss the.
The recommendations.
Sounds good.
Okay. Amber, anything for tonight? Good, okay. Anything in the audience? Anything in the Zoom audience?
I have a question, Jerry.
Yep.
It's Julia Brennan from the Shelter Island Gazette. So my question, I guess, is kind of referring to what BJ was just talking about yesterday's Water Advisory Committee meeting regarding Gardner's Bay Country Club.
Yep.
And here's what I'm trying to get at. BJ mentioned that, and this was brought up a couple of times during the meeting yesterday, that if Gardner's Bay were to get permission to expand its watering, that the town would have no mechanism whereby it could cause Gardner's Bay to comport with its irrigation constrictions for conservation during drought and things like that. There was also mention that the town attorney had said there needed to be updates to the town code in reference to Gardner's Bay's proposal. Right now, my understanding of town code is that the stuff that was existing when the irrigation law went in terms of the playing areas at these golf courses, the 2 golf courses, that was all grandfathered, but that anything new obviously would have to be sort of subject to the provisions. So I'm not sure I can understand how it is or what mechanism it is through the law, the town code, that Gardner's Bay would not be subject, if it were to expand, that it wouldn't be subject to any restrictions that the town board had in place. Can you just clarify that for us, Stephen, or anybody? Or is that going to be the subject of a later meeting?
Yeah, it's going to be the subject of a later meeting. I just think it's fair to the public and also fair to Gardner's Bay, if we're going to discuss this, to at least put it on an agenda as an agenda item so they could be here and listen and be able to, yeah, so if we can just put this on as
Well, my understanding is they can't do anything now with the current legislation.
correct.
for the town.
It's just it's the irrigation for the existing greens.
Right,
That's it.
right. Okay.
Okay, thanks. And then I had another question. And again, this is sort of not specific, but it's more general. Meg and DJ both, when you were talking about input from different groups, you sort of used the word, and I think maybe that causes some confusion, that people's input would be included in the comprehensive plan. And I know that there's been a lot of debate at the comprehensive plan meetings about whether input is all included or whether it's reflected in the eventual draft. Obviously, everything that everybody has ever had to say about the comprehensive plan can't fit into a plan.
Correct.
So, is there some language that you've developed that will let people understand that just because they say something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go, now we're going to stick it in the comp plan?
Do you have any
It's a good point,
suggestions?
Julie. Well, I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, it's all taken into consideration. Not everything will make it into the plan, and not everything is appropriate for the plan. You know, there are some things that might be too specific for the comprehensive plan. But it's all being taken into consideration, so nothing is being completely ignored. I don't know what the best language is to inform people of that, but, you know, we are open to everyone's ideas and suggestions. It doesn't necessarily mean that it'll make it into the final draft. You know, even in the meetings of the CPAC, when we were discussing different chapters, we would go through the public input and then discuss it at the work session. And, you know, it was determined that some of those ideas and concepts weren't appropriate for the plan. You know, once they were really kind of hashed out and talked about, you know, it didn't seem like it was be a appropriate recommendation. So, you know, there is further discussion to go, and we're just trying to collect all the input and then incorporate the pieces that work and that make sense. And, you know, once we have a draft, then we'll have another round of public input. So if there are things in that draft that, you know, the public strongly disagrees with, or that it turns out that maybe they conflict with another portion of the comp plan or policy, then that will be reevaluated. So not every single word or phrase that we get as input will be incorporated into the plan, but it's all taken into consideration.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion, we end the work session and go to an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.